Advisory Board to order on Monday, June 18th. Would you please call the roll, Brandon?
Sure. Eric DeGroot. Pat Helquest.
Here.
Lisa Marone. Vic Oliver.
Here.
Ken Osmond.
Here.
Bob Peschel. Brad Spanbauer.
Here.
Aaron Wojciechowski.
Here.
Michelle Bogdan-Metzel. Margie Davy.
Here. Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda is public comment. Let me just ask you to go over to the podium, please.
Hello, Steve Barney. I'm going to stick to the script, I think.
We'll need your address too, please.
1335 Summit Ave.
Thank you.
Oshkosh. I sent you guys an email about a month ago, and it appears that it didn't get to everybody, so a council member suggested I should come here to encourage you to do what you can to promote what I'm suggesting. So, like I wrote, Noam Chomsky says that we're all dead if nuclear war breaks out, and Putin reminds me of Dr. Strangelove. On the other hand, according to The Guardian, quote, global warming has heated the oceans by the equivalent of one atomic bomb explosion per second for the last 150 years, according to analysis of new research. Unquote. So, my humble suggestion is let's plant as many trees as we can, especially shade trees, and repopulate our urban forest. I think you should plant a continuous and unbroken line of trees along the footpaths in the parks, for example, and fill the street terraces with trees. And then I provided a few footnotes with some sources that might be useful to you. I first sent you that link number 2 in an email in August, but I don't know if anybody got it or paid attention to it. I didn't get any reply. The United Nations has established a new body that is trying to help people involved with the economic side of things determine the ecosystem services, the economic value of ecosystem services that are provided by different things like trees. And one example is number 3. The treetools.org or itreetools.org, which is developed by the USDA to help people like city planners to determine, to put dollar signs on the benefits of trees. That's just one example of many examples of many things that you can find at source number 2. And so again, I didn't get any response to this, so I don't know if anybody got it or read it or has responded, has done anything with it. So here I am, bringing it to your attention. It's supposed to be helpful, so I'm hoping that it will be helpful to you.
Thank you, Steve. We did receive it, and we had not done anything with it yet because we had so many other things on our agenda, but it is something that should be prioritized. I don't disagree with you on that. So, thank you.
I'll add to that, I think the last round of student presentations, they did one of the reports was urban forest recommendation. So it aligns well with that.
I grew up on Algoma Boulevard, right by the museum. And right now, they just started digging up the road there as part of the Algoma Boulevard reconstruction process. And it looks like all of Algoma that preceded this block that I'm talking about, has been deforested. It looks like, as far as I can see, all the terrace trees that were there, I think it was like a 12-foot terrace, have been eliminated. And there are some trees in the terrace in that remaining block, and I suspect they're going to go as well. And we're moving in the wrong direction here, you know. I just think that when I was a kid, you know, the streets used to be a lot shadier than they are now. My neighborhood, I was actually instrumental in getting my neighborhood to get the city to plant trees in our neighborhood, okay? And they've done that now, but they're so sparse, and most of them, I think maybe all of them, are just mere ornamentals. You know, I'd like to see shady streets once again. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Thanks, Steve.
Oshkosh is part of the Tree City. We do have a Tree City designation, and we also have the tree planting program, a couple of different ones, that they do try to replant terrace trees, but it's not always possible because of what's underground there, so.
Is there, maybe you know this, but it just seems to me that over the years, there's been stricter and stricter tolerances for power and communication lines and the distances from trees. As those have become more restrictive, has there been anything to offset that, such as investment in underground wiring or something to offset the tree loss close? Because it's not even just the terraces.
Yeah, I mean, I think just the couple of conversations I've had in regards to like burying power lines, it's super expensive to bury power lines. So it takes a significant chunk of a budget to do that.
To do that when they're already there, it's less expensive in a new area.
Yeah, right. I think, and again, it's kind of a coordination too then, right, with the power company. They have to be on board with it as well, and I assume that they would have some expenses, you know, to do that as well. So I don't know of any programs, for instance, as Steve mentioned, like if Algoma Street is a 50-foot right-of-way and it's going to go to a 65-foot right-of-way or something, well, we're losing some terrace on each side then, right? And a lot of that has to do with, you know, safety studies and stuff for new road construction with bike lanes, and you know, so there's reasons why it gets larger. But the offset, I'm unaware of any program that offsets the loss of those terrace trees besides, you know, the terrace tree program, which replants trees in those terraces, but sometimes potentially there's not enough room in the terrace to plant the tree. And then the only other thing I would say is this, like, you know, in 2017, the landscaping code section in the zoning code was updated, which requires, you know, when new developments occur, there's all these, we talked about it before, the landscaping points, right? So they have to plant plants or flowers or trees or bushes, but they're not required necessarily to plant trees, right? They can meet those points without planting trees, so.
Yeah.
And there were also some additional recommendations made in that zoning code for the type of tree and to increase the diversity of trees. Because I know when I first moved to Oshkosh, Menominee Park was full of oak trees. And obviously it's not anymore because whatever tax them came along and got rid of most of them. And now we're dealing with it's elm,
Ash borer.
ash borer trees, and I know maple trees are having some kind of an issue now too, and it's just knowing what to plant. The closer we can get to natives, probably the better off we are.
Because when New York Avenue was redone, we lost anywhere between 35 and 40% of our front yard shade because either whole trees were lost when the trunks were too close to the power lines, or in my case for my home, basically the front half of my trees were cut off,
Right.
to allow the distance from the power lines. So it just seems kind of strange that we don't have sort of an offset regulation in our own city to say, hey, when these things are built, we have to replace it somewhere else in the city or somewhere in a proximity to the neighborhood.
It's not to say that that doesn't exist, I'm just unaware of it.
Okay.
Like, because remember, everything that's in the right of way is mostly done by Department of Public Works. So the city planners unfortunately don't really have a lot of say when it comes to road construction.
And we could schedule either Public Works or
Yeah.
Forestry to come in and talk to us about what is, so that we had a better understanding of that. And that's probably a good idea for a future meeting.
Sure.
We're not really noticed to talk about trees today, by the way.
Right, yeah, I just,
So,
Oh,
Sorry.
okay.
was that about trees, Pat?
Well, yeah, it was just a comment about, my understanding is if you can get a tree planted at no cost to the owner on a terrace, and people I've talked to don't seem to be aware of this, so I don't know if it's worth publicizing that so people realize that, but, you know.
And that might be something that we need to check into and see how it's been publicized, or if it has been.
Right, yeah.
Great, okay. Moving on to number 3, approval of minutes from our June 6th meeting.
I move that we approve them.
seconded.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor of approval of the minutes as written, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, moving on to number 4. Amend snow and ice removal ordinance for discussion and action. And that would be our section 25 thing, right?
Yes.
Putting stuff up on there?
Yeah, I think maybe I'll bring it up just so everybody can see it in the public too.
Just really quickly, if I can comment, the agenda for today reads Monday, June 18th, not July
Ooh,
18th.
Good catch, good catch.
I think I said it out loud before, too.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I wish it was still June 18th, but
Good catch. My bad. So if you don't mind, I'll just hop online here and we'll look at the proposed ordinance. Assuming this works. So I will say this is similar to the last conversation we had. If you remember in June, Brad kind of talked about the proposed ordinance. We had a rather lengthy discussion about it. But Brad had submitted to me that final version, and then the next item on the agenda will be the proposed back sheet of that informational packet or informational document. I don't know why this isn't working. There we go.
And you wonder why it takes us so long to find stuff, right?
Got it.
One thing I did notice on here is that we need to remove the word "be" on the second to the last line of the first paragraph, so it just says "is not effective."
Good catch.
Other than that, does it look right to you, Brad?
looks good to me.
Okay. Is there any discussion on the changes? Can everybody see that, I should ask?
Yes.
Okay. I see Pat's eyes moving yet, so I think she's still reading.
This would be the opportunity to change the language before you guys vote on it and make a recommendation to council. So I would just, take those changes and I could make the edit tomorrow and
Is there any further discussion on this, or does it look okay to everyone?
Looks good.
Okay, well, somebody please make a motion to accept it as changed, as altered here.
Motion to accept.
Second?
Thank you. Any discussion? No? All in agreement? Can we do this by voice vote? We can, can't
I
we?
think so.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, it passes. And that takes us to the hidden costs of oversalting, which would go in the, this is designated for a water bill or something, right? As a,
So the one thing that got brought up at the last meeting, I think, Vic, you had mentioned that this image was maybe not gonna show up very well, black and white.
Yes.
Um,
Like the maps of the sidewalk changes? Mm-mm.
Right, so I mean, I don't know, again, this is what, Brad, this is what you gave me, so but again, if you wanted to, this one is kind of more flexible, right? Like if you want, I mean, yeah, so that's
It's
black and
actually
white,
not that
Margie
bad.
doesn't look bad.
It printed better than I thought it would.
Yeah, so maybe we're good.
Set down. Yes.
I had forgotten about that part, so I'm glad you brought that up again, but
I think it looks
there's
all
quite a
right.
bit of contrast in it. It shows that it's
Yeah.
kind of broken up.
Oh, it's better than I thought it would be. I mean, I think that's fine unless anyone else has comments on it.
I tried to take all of the comments back, particularly from city staff, but I think everything that we talked about, and just discussed with Brandon that, yeah, this would go back on the back side of the thing that you get that basically says city snow shoveling ordinance, and then there's the paragraph that pulls out the language, which we've just, now made a recommendation to have them adopt for edit with the edited changes. But this will, give people some additional context for, just, I think this side will be more helpful to your kind of average everyday person versus, the altered language, but that's part of the process, right, is altering the code.
Well, and it's great that this points out that once the salt's on the sidewalk, it enters our water eventually, so.
Yeah.
And a reminder to sweep it up if you can and everything. Does anybody see anything that they would like changed on here?
And everything on here, and so I added about according to Wisconsin, everything on here is from the Wisconsin Saltwise website, or they kind of have another reference. So this image is taken from, a study that they are referencing on their site. So,
Yeah, I had preliminarily given this to Department of Public Works head, and both of them he was okay with. So I think that's good too. So if you guys recommend this, and I don't even know if honestly this will go to council, if this will just be a recommendation from SAB to maybe that department, maybe.
Public Works, and they'll just have that
Yeah.
added as the
So
back.
maybe your motion can, I don't know if it has to be stated some certain way that it's for both, or.
Yeah, and I forgot to review our new flow chart to see just how that works. Why don't we just go ahead and make a recommendation that this move on
Okay.
and
wherever that appropriate place may be.
Okay.
wherever it may flow.
Sounds good.
Yes. And that we need to vote on too, don't we?
Yes.
Yes, we do, okay. Did I hear a motion from anyone?
Motion to accept?
Okay, to accept it as written and pass it
Yes.
on? That's what I thought you said, okay. Did I hear a second? Okay. Is there any further discussion? No? Okay, let's take a voice vote then. All in favor of this moving on as written?
Aye.
All right.
Anyone opposed? All righty. And that takes us to number 6. And you're going to give us an update on the native plant weed cutting and lawn care ordinance?
Is that the next one?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, good. So, yeah, let me just pull up the, all right, so met with, Department of, Parks head and inspections and the attorneys, and basically had a pretty good meeting. They are still in the process of finishing the kind of what they're gonna propose back to SAB. And that'll be at the August 1st meeting. So it's pretty brief update, but just know that everybody got back together, some changes were made.
And refresh my memory, because we had some discussion, but I think we kind of were circling back to some sort of existential questions of just about what it was that we were asking, or what we were, and so the bigger conversation was had with these department heads.
Yep, exactly. So, if you remember from the last meeting, basically that day prior, earlier in the day, I had met with the attorney's office and they had some concerns about the proposed language. And so I kind of put a pause on it because what had happened was we had removed the ability of city staff to enforce anything except noxious weeds. And there's a lot of things that aren't listed as noxious that are also nuisances. So we didn't even need to have the exception part of that code because there was exceptions to everything besides noxious weeds. So there was no reason for it. So it kind of needed to be rewritten with that in mind. So like in the new section, or the new code that you guys will see, there's a weed commissioner, which is something that we're supposed to be doing by state law anyway, or state regulation, have like a weed commissioner.
What is that?
It gives them kind of the right to enter someone's property and inspect
Okay.
things and whatnot. I mean, we already kind of do it, but it was
Sure.
kind of a formality.
Like a
that
title that
overlooked.
has to be
Yeah, so this tightens things
declared
up a
to
little
someone.
bit in the code, which is good. So August 1st, you guys will see it, and then you can have a big discussion about it, and we'll kind of go from there. There's gonna be a lot of changes. So,
Is someone being appointed weed commissioner?
I don't know. I think that it's just.
I think Brandon.
Not me, no. They'll be in the inspections department, yeah. But, so that's the brief
Okay.
update, like, that's very, very simple.
Okay, we'll wait till
What?
August. That's only a couple of weeks off, so,
Yeah, 2 weeks.
yes. Yes, we go 6 weeks in between, but that only gives us 2 weeks till the next one, right? Okay, well then, number 7 is the sustainability manager position to discuss. And as you'll recall, this is one of the things that the students had given us. The report that was included in our packet was the proposal that the students had made. And it's 28 pages long or something.
Can I just give a brief?
Yes.
Okay, so the last time we talked, some of the things that we wanted to do on this, for this meeting was discuss a potential SAB budget and the SAB manager role. So again, anytime a proposed topic gets brought up, I have to discuss it with the people above me. And so I found out that SAB budget would be, we had initially thought like maybe it could be something out of the CIP budget. And I found out that in order for it to be CIP funding, it has to be specific to something. Like it has to be tied to something literally, a potential project or something. So there's basically the reason why I decided to just put this on the agenda instead of that is because funding a role like this would be something that's a little bit maybe more feasible, and then someone like a sustainability manager could then initiate a budget request. So it's kind of, at least this is how I was explained it to me. So
we may have been putting the cart before the horse.
yes,
As far as city budgeting goes, and that if we can create a position for it.
right.
We can ask the council to create a position for it, then that position could be funded through the CIP, but then that person could be making requests for
Budget.
whatever we were seeing a need for in the budget. And they'd also be able to be applying, it would give us an actual staff person to be applying for grants. And, I mean, we have done very limited bit of that, but it was always, I mean, we're a volunteer organization, and it's difficult to have something run with no budget by just volunteers. And this is, quite honestly, I love the fact that the students did this, because I've been on the sustainability board forever, and I think forever is a long time, so, but throughout that entire time, there's been discussion of either creating a sustainability manager of some kind or a green team within the city, which we tried for about 8 years ago. It always depends on who the council is at that point, but at that time, only half of the council was interested enough to even show up to our workshop that we gave before the council meeting. So it's not a high priority item, But I think the reason it's not is because people within the city management, but also the citizens don't understand, for the most part, what the advantages of sustainability are, or even what it means, sustainability, resiliency. Obviously, people at the university have a better understanding because they have such a viable ongoing program and have for years. Yes, and, but because we've never really attained that at the city level, I can't tell you how many times people have said to me, oh, there's a sustainability board? They had no clue, you know, so, and part of that is our fault. We're not doing enough outreach, but then how do we do that? You know, so this seems a very viable way to make it a better, make it more a part of the city than just some advisory board that they can kind of give us the space for and then blow us off. And quite honestly, 4 hours a week for a sustainability staff person is sort of insulting. I mean, it's wonderful, the people that we've had throughout the years to do that, and I know that often that 4 hours probably gets extended beyond that. But since that's officially all we have, wouldn't 20 hours or 40 hours be better? So, anyway.
What is CIP, sorry?
Thank you.
Capital improvement projects.
Oh.
So mainly infrastructure items.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Couple updates and things. So, City Council met with department heads last Tuesday, to do a strategic planning session. So we reviewed the entire strategic plan, and make updates to it, you know, if goals have been completed. But one of the asks that I had this year was that we include sustainability as part of the overall plan, because if you go through it, I don't think the word sustainability is mentioned even once in any parts of the plan. So we had a discussion about making that more of a priority in all. So it's not its own section, because you know there's like the 6 bubbles, but adding it as a goal priority, and that was accepted. So it's looking like there's going to be more of that focus now. So I think the need for a position like this is going to be more, it's going to make more sense. And now we kind of have a push for it. Because one of the asks, or one of the goals that I said that we should be implementing at least like one goal, one sustainable goal or plan every year. And most on council agreed with that. So I think I think a budget request wouldn't be out of the ask. And it's not out of the ordinary for departments to request these additional positions. I think at last year's budget, we like added an additional law enforcement person, and I think maybe I can't remember, but we added some extra positions that weren't originally in the budget, but they asked if we could fund them. So this is one position that I could see coming to council to be asked for.
So in your opinion, we're not too late to make that happen this year? It wouldn't have to wait for a full other cycle?
No, you could, I mean, you can still do it. I mean, sometimes these come to us pretty late in the process. But, you know, but the more rationale you have, the more things you can present. You know, if you have a position description already and, you know, how much it's going to cost, that makes it more reasonable than just saying we want to. And, like, especially like a report like this,
Yeah.
you know, gives a lot of push behind it. But I know I'm not the only one on council who, you know, shares that same attitude. I think others want to see more focus on sustainability, and a role like this could help that a lot.
Yes, it certainly could.
That was my positive update from that strategic planning session.
Aaron, do you have an idea of, would something like this, just say for instance, a budget request got denied, do you know, would ARPA funding be able to be used to, like say, for 1 year or 2 years or something to fund this position until this person could start to find grants and stuff to kind of, as the students had presented, like kind of fund the position on their own?
Yeah, we designated $5 million out of the $15 million for non-infrastructure things. So, and there's wasn't really like, it was basically just non-infrastructure things. So, we haven't, you know, we've approved very little of that overall 20 million for anything. So, you know, there still is room for that to be an ARPA request, and I think that's reasonable too.
Probably a good idea. to give it a start.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And this is something that DEI is kind of in the process of doing too, because they're looking at trying to get a like diversity coordinator or something like that. But they have to come up with a strategic plan first before they can do that. But kind of similar things right now.
So what should we be doing with this?
So, I mean, typically, right, so these student reports, they're student reports. So SAB should probably review this, figure out if it's, enough. Do you guys need to do more research and come back to the table with something more narrow, or maybe it's more expanded? It's kind of up to you how you would want to move forward with that. This is kind of your starting point.
One of the things I think we have an obligation to outline is the funding plan for the position, what the expectation of this advisory group is. And then, for example, short-term funding versus self-funding at some later date. When is that expectation? And I think we also maybe need to, either in a general form, maybe not too specific to start with, but actually, in addition to the skills and hard skill, soft skill requirements we're going to have for the position, it would also be what are the funding standards? How many grants will be applied for? What is the expected incoming revenue for that? Because one of my concerns as a taxpayer is what money has the city lost out on because we haven't applied for grants to be a part of projects because we added a sustainability element to it, So I think if we just flush that out a little bit better and, and in terms of the hard parameters, I think we can.
Basically create a matrix for the position itself.
Right, just like you would for any charitable board or any, new position you're starting in a corporation. It's like, if you're gonna make this investment, what do you expect out of it?
How long do you think it'd take to write that up?
Give me a couple days, I'll write it up for you.
One recommendation I would have in addition to that is measures our accountability metrics, because I know that's a huge thing for them. It's going to be, what are they going to be doing? We already have a sustainability plan that's been created that
But nobody follows.
the person can start working on. But one of the asks from me to city staff and Mark was review that and update it as needed. So it's not, I'm just the committee to do it. Someone actually will take a look at that. But yeah, they're going to want metrics, how are we making sure what they're doing is actually, making a difference, or like how are we keeping track of what they're doing? So those are really the big things, and then how much is it going to cost?
Right, yeah, because I think you have to have performance parameters.
And those are done in a couple of ways already. I mean, I would say that the sustainability plan is one of them. The other one is the Green Tier Legacy committee or team. I can't remember what they're called, but there's yearly we're required to fill out an entire Excel spreadsheet and go through it and make sure that we're checking off things that have been accomplished. And then basically it's a point system. At the end, you get a total amount of points, and then you either are or are not part of the Green Tier Legacy Committee. So that's another metric that's being done already by planning staff that a position like this would probably be better suited for, because, for instance, some of the questions on there are related to things that are happening at the wastewater treatment facility, and I've never been to the wastewater treatment facility.
I didn't even know that was a tier system, so
Yeah.
that would be something great if we could get that reported out, but we've never had our.
Is there an example of that?
The Green Tier Legacy Committee?
Yeah.
I can probably find it. I don't know
Could you
if
share
it's,
that with us?
you want to look at it now, or is that a separate?
Why don't you, it's really a huge
a big
document
document.
itself. Why don't you share that with all
Sure,
of us for
whatever.
later? It's quite interesting, Ken. We, probably about 5 years ago, we really worked with some students on that too, but it's got, it really gets down, if it was an outline, it would look like this.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It gets way down there in the weeds, which is great.
So yeah, I mean, that would be my recommendation. You guys, I don't know, maybe a subcommittee would have to be formed, but I think everybody should really look at this report and go through it with a fine-tooth comb and come back, at some point come back with all of your recommendations and This is really new. I mean, I don't know if any board has ever recommended a new position.
Well, I think we should be a leader.
First.
A leader.
Yes, we're good at being first.
We can try to get some more clarification on what that process looks like.
It's always interesting being the first to the bridge.
Can be bad, can be good or bad, right?
Are we, so is the plan, excuse me, is the plan to look through this document and, I mean, I guess, I don't want to duplicate work. It sounds like maybe one aspect of this is to come up with a list or a matrix of metrics. That kind of sounded like that was a thing. Do we want to make a recommendation at this point of like a position description, like what the person would actually do, or is that already kind of built into maybe what Ken is talking about?
Well, I was gonna tackle like a normal, being an owner of a business and a business consultant was gonna go through the description, roles and responsibilities, educational requirements, skills,
Okay.
success
Kind of like
metrics.
a PD and then some other stuff.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then everybody can kind of comment on it and add or take away and determine what's important, I mean, you don't want to create a job description for a unicorn, that doesn't exist,
And there's
But-
some examples out there. I think the students mentioned City of Ashland or
Yep.
the City of Racine. That's the one that just was posted not too long ago, actually.
Well, and Middleton's had a position for several years now, so they were pretty good to look at too. But I think that what we can take from this is, I mean, there's a lot of information in their report. But yes, I agree with you, Brad. We shouldn't just regurgitate their report with our name on it. We
Right.
should look at it specifically for what we can take out of it and then fill it in with what we need, right?
I was thinking, a legal standing document an employee handbook would have or an HR department would have, if you were going to post it internally or externally, this is in fact,
This is what it would be, yeah.
these are your success metrics and this is what we require of the position.
And this is how much we can pay.
Well, that we don't.
That we're gonna have to leave up to the council.
Well, I mean, I think it'd be important to show
A range.
But
the savings that you're gonna, by having
Right.
someone able to apply for grants that will then put heat pumps or solar or some types of technology that save money.
For example, had we applied for this grant in 2018, it would have by now saved us this much money.
Yeah, potentially, right, yeah, and, maybe the Lakeshore building would have had heat pumps instead of a traditional furnace, right, or something.
Yeah, the stuff was looked
I-
at before the plans got made completely.
Right.
But I would think philosophically, any financial or tangible benefits that result from this group also happen to belong to the sustainability manager.
Yes, that would
Right.
make sense, yes. I mean, it doesn't eliminate us by any means.
No.
But it may help give us some guidance as well as some support, and that would be nice.
You guys would empower each other, really.
Yes.
Right, exactly.
Okay. Other comments, anyone?
So I'll get that for the next meeting.
Which is only 2 weeks, right?
Right.
Which means that we have a week before Brandon wants to send it out.
Yeah, I would probably take
I'm
your
sorry,
time,
Ken,
take your
it's
time
true.
on this one, maybe, if you want to. Like, we only have 2 weeks, so that means that really, whatever you come up with, I need to have like,
This week.
This week, so I can share it with staff. Yeah, that needs to be. So let's just.
Taskmaster.
I remember him saying 2 days just a few minutes ago, though. Don't you
Okay.
remember that?
Yeah.
Brad's
right.
looking at me like you do that every time, Margie. I know you do.
So let's just look here. I mean, August 1st, and then September will be another one of the situations like July where the 5th will not be a meeting date. So like if you wanted to meet in September, you'd have to, we can talk about that at the August meeting. But yeah, I mean,
And this board is gonna wanna see that before he does anything with it. Shares it with bosses and city council.
Probably, yes.
Yeah.
We should, yeah. Well, if we looked at it in August without
Okay.
it being shared with anybody, we could discuss what's on there and if we liked it all, and then you could take that to share, right? Take it on up the ladder?
again, I have to look at the flow chart, but I think if Ken was to propose, like say he sends me an email with the proposed document,
They have to review it
I think they have to
first
review it, they review it first, I think.
before we can.
So we really are kind of extraneous at this point, right, with this new flow
I
chart?
mean, you could create a subcommittee and then meet on your own prior to submitting it, I think.
Can we create a subcommittee of 17 people?
Right. So, I mean, you could, why don't you work on it and then send it to me and I can get clarification on that, if it's okay to send that draft version out to everybody by email?
I know that there's a lot of questions among all the boards now after the flow chart came out,
Yeah.
that nobody really knows how we do things anymore. It-
Because it would make sense,
Yeah.
and I agree with you guys, it makes sense for, if someone creates something, that it comes here, and then as a collective, because that's the only way to discuss it, would then get edited, and then that would be what's proposed back for staff revisions.
But we could do that by creating a subcommittee, having a subcommittee meeting with any sustainability members who wish to attend, and that would not be, that wouldn't have, wouldn't be recorded, wouldn't have minutes. It
Right.
would be an open discussion for what we thought we were looking at, right?
Yep.
Does that sound right to you, Aaron?
Well, we had a discussion at council because
I thought you
because this was my whole gripe with this, the changes in this thing. But from my understanding, it was really when it applies is if someone wants to put something on the agenda and the staff isn't sure that it necessarily,
Fits.
then they go to their like the person above them to, because the staff has the discretion to deny things on an agenda, such as this resolution. But the committee also has the ability to overturn. I'm not saying you would,
No.
because this does fall in the
It
purview
applies, yeah.
of the committee, so.
But this is on our agenda tonight, which means somebody's approved it being on there. Is that correct? Is that
Yeah.
what I'm hearing?
I'm just saying I don't think it necessarily needs to go through all the steps of making a subcommittee.
Oh, okay.
I wouldn't see why, if we, as a committee, said we want to see a resolution or some ordinance, proposal, that it could come to this
Okay.
committee next meeting or whenever.
I
you
think
choose.
I need 9 spell checkers and.
Right. So I mean, so again, we could try to get clarification. If that's something new that has been
Yeah.
discussed and I'm not aware, maybe there's a misunderstanding on my part about the flow chart.
There,
Well, I think the whole problem with this flow chart is a lack of communication with everybody on it.
Yeah.
So it's something new and nobody's used to it and it's not
So
working.
Ken, why don't you work on what you are planning on working on and then send it to me, and in the meantime, I can try to get clarification, and when I get that, then if it's okay to send everybody, I'll send it, and if not, then I can let you know that I received it, but it'll be on the agenda or something like that,
Yes, or if it's not okay, then you could let us know why
Right, yeah, okay.
and who to talk to about that. Oops, I clicked off of my agenda. That's why I always print it out, then I can't lose it.
Future agenda items.
Ah, there we go. Thank you, Ken. So we've decided what we're doing with the sustainability manager position, agenda items for future meeting. We do have 3 things listed here, all of which we can kind of just carry on there until they come to the top. You'll notice it doesn't say August meeting, it just says future meeting. And we do now want to add the sustainability manager position, what do you want to call it? Outline? Proposal. To and designate that for August, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would designate it as discussion and action, just in case we feel comfortable when it's presented, then you can take action on it then instead of having to wait an additional month.
No problem.
Thank you, Aaron, good idea.
And just because just looking at the calendar, our second budget workshop is August 30th. So it's slowly approaching.
Okay. Thankfully, we have 1 meeting between now and then, so. Okay.
August 1st will be an important meeting,
Yes,
for you there.
yes. Don't make me come find you, just tell us you're gonna come, okay? Okay, so the marketing flyer is sort of in limbo at this point, right?
Yeah, like, I mean, there's a lot of things happening, so that's just one thing that you guys are trying to work on. The reason why I have these agenda items for future meetings listed out the way they were is because when we didn't have them listed,
We kept forgetting about them.
but I was also told that technically, whatever, it's not an open forum at that point. We still have to have items listed in order to talk about them.
So if it's not on there, you can't talk about it.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, because it's not noticed, so the public wouldn't know that we were going to talk about them, so they couldn't be here to make comments on it if they wanted to, or
Right.
whatever.
Right.
So like review spring 2022 student reports is somewhat vague, right? In that there are 4
Somewhat.
student reports.
That does give us the opportunity to discuss any of those, should we
They're
want.
online, they're easy to find, they're public, so.
Got it. I just, my only recommendation was to add an item, but I remember that the item that I was going to add is found in the student report, so.
Okay. Like, and as Vic said at the last meeting, she's, in the past, those happen, and then if someone wants to grab onto one and kind of embrace it and take it further, they can. So that the opportunity would just be to, talk about it and figure that out if you guys wanted to.
The vagueness is good. I appreciate it.
But this would be the place, if anybody has anything that's not currently listed
Right.
on here, that you would say, I want this
I'm
to
in.
be on a future agenda. And see no interest in that, because we've got quite a bit on here already. Is there anything else? Next meeting is going to be Monday, August 1st, 6 PM, right here. And I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Not even going to ask if anyone's opposed.